Hey everybody, Eric Schweitzer here, joined today by Cristian Macias.
How's it going, man?
Good, rounding out our Game Awards discussions with a deeper dive into the independent game category.
Mm.
This year's best indies, pretty strong list. Maybe one of the best we've had in a long time.
Yeah, it's up there, especially when you've got indies like Balatro competing against, other amazing indies. Yeah, it's a solid year this year.
Yeah, so let's start with Balatro because this is the first time that a best indie and best debut indie is also a Game of the Year nominee. So that obviously I think puts it as a front runner here. I mean, none of these other games are for best game of the year. Is Balatro, is that one that you connected with?
I've connected with Balatro like on 3 separate occasions where like when I came out, I gave it the old college try, loved it, put it down for work reasons, came back in to play some more like halfway through the year, sucked back in again. And then recently when I got the Game of the Year nomination, I like dove in for Capture once more, and it's like took over my life for a solid 3 to 5 day period. And it feels like on the third time, I finally got like a good understanding of like how some of these jokers like really synchronize, where I was like finally getting some insane runs going. I was like, yes, this truly is one of the best games I've ever played.
Yeah, I'm a big numbers go up guy. My sweet numbies. Anytime I can see values increase, I'm on board. And this is one of the best to ever do it, man. Though when those bonuses start stacking and those jokers start popping with every hand, and you're just like, and then that you get that little flame animation on your total. It's like, whew.
I think the best thing about this game, the most underrated part of this game, is its sound design. I think, were it not for those like the card shuffling or the clicks of the multiplier, I don't know how highly I would enjoy this game. It's so satisfying. It's just a small thing, but like psychologically, it does so much for me.
It is interesting, I think, to see the recognition it's getting. I do think it's deserved, but at the same time, we have these sort of like, I think it's a fad game. I don't think that's too disparaging to call it a fad game. And we've had similar things like Vampire Survivors over the last couple years, and these like really addictive, obsessive little indie games that everybody loves, and then we move on. But this one has really stuck around all year. It was an early release. It was like February, and now it's got all these award nominations, and it has this new spike in popularity from that. So it feels like this one's really going to hang on.
Yeah, I think if anything, this one maybe has the best shot of taking this category because of like how much it's remained in the zeitgeist throughout the year and only continues to get bigger and bigger. I think there's like a huge uptick in sales when it came to mobile, and then after this, of course, when nominees came out for Game of the Year contender, like people are actually now getting what this game is.
It feels like a Slay the Spire in terms of like its legs. Slay the Spire is almost like a new genre of roguelike card games, so this is definitely feels like a game that wouldn't exist necessarily without Slay the Spire, but it's the same kind of game that I could see being that, let me just do one run, and it's been 5 years and you're still into it. Okay, so the front runner here, just because of its popularity and its other nominations, to be honest, probably not my choice though in this category. If I had to pick one of these, I think it would be Animal Well.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Animal Well, please.
So this is a game I guess I have a pretty personal connection to it because I was all about it for like years. I've been keeping track of this game, and this is another game with a solo dev like Balatro, and I played this at PAX probably like 4 years in a row. I just got to see a little bit of development each year, and I knew it was going to be a banger, and it totally was. I think what I love so much about, like, I'm a big Metroidvania guy, but so I'm already predisposed to like Animal Well, but I feel like it's such a lesson in deep minimalism. Like it does so much with so little. And I think that's what is so incredibly impressive about it. That this is a game that like it appears very shallow, and yet it is incredibly deep, and it just keeps going. And the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. I was just like, enchanted by this game, and it felt like a legitimate evolution of the Metroidvania. It felt like it feels pivotal. It feels like we're gonna get games that borrow the Animal Well formula, like the next phase of the Metroidvania, maybe. Yeah.
Something about the nominations of indie games this year, they're all to varying degrees like non-verbal. Like these are not games that talk to you or have much dialogue. And Animal Well, I think, is like a strong case for like the language of design and how to teach players how to like engage with the world, both like with like individual puzzles, but like the way puzzles like connect with each other in the world, the larger world around you, I think is a strong case for Animal Well. This is one I got a code for, but wasn't part of the review cycle for. So I kind of missed the interconnectivity, I guess, if you will, like the conversations people were having with each other about how some of the aspects of this game kind of talk to other SKUs people may have.
Yeah, and it almost is like an ARG.
Yeah.
It was like a social like detective game almost. Like
sure.
Which is also really unique. And a really important part of the experience that existed outside of the game itself.
Sure.
Okay, if not Balatro, what's your front runner here?
Mine is Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. Yeah. This is actually my front runner for Game of the Year on my personal list as well.
Okay, yeah.
It's close, but Lorelei and the Laser Eyes is just the game for me. Like in terms of atmosphere, Animal Well and Lorelei have such similar atmosphere that they're almost like horror or kind of surreal adjacent. That's haunting. Part of what like just perfect word for it. Yeah, that got my foot in the door. That got my curiosity. But I think in terms of puzzles and the way like puzzles are in dialogue with each other puzzles and then also the player, this was the detective game for me. And in terms like, I think it's a personal preference because I had a solo experience with Animal Well, and I think the stronger case for Animal Well is having other people to talk to. I had a solo experience with Lorelei, and it was one of those games where like I actually took ink and paper and just went to town on my notes, figuring out this larger puzzle in front of me, and it was the most enthralling experience I've had in a game in such a long time. So satisfying.
I'm right there with you. There's a lot of games. There's a lot of like puzzly games that people will say, "Oh, this made me feel really smart," and people value that pretty highly. Lorelei is one of those games where I know the person who made it is so much smarter than me.
Sure,
and just blown away by how intelligent its puzzle designs were, and that for me had even more value than like I got more gratification knowing that someone was operating at such a high level when they put this really cool experience together.
Yeah. What's interesting about Lorelei too is that its storytelling is kind of opaque. It's intentionally vague. Like you have to really be kind of piecing together what actually happened on X date. I'm kind of being vague here. Where I found unraveling what the tragedy was of Lorelei and the Laser Eyes to be like the kind of emotional out of this group of games to be the emotional experience for me out of the year, which is crazy because it's going up against Neva as well.
Yeah, I want to get into that in a second. I tend to be kind of critical of these categories for the Game Awards. They feel sort of insufficient to me. I often complain about best family games because it's just best Nintendo games. Like, but the only game there is Mario Party. That's an actual family game, and the rest are just family friendly. I guess.
Right. Yeah. E for everyone.
Right. This one. What's so interesting here is like Lorelei and Balatro in particular. Those two could not be more different. Yes, they were both made of a certain budget, but the audience those appeal to, I know we both love both these games, but the audience these two games appeal to are like polar opposite. One is get fully invested, like put everything you have into solving these puzzles and engaging with this and absorbing it. And the other one is put on a movie in the background, play this for 10 minutes a couple times a year. Like, very different experiences.
Yeah, which is interesting because you're right though, because I'm not out there recommending people buy Lorelei and the Laser Eyes the same way I am like you should check out Balatro. In fact, I've bought copies of Balatro for a few people who have now like made it one of their favorites of the year, just because of how easy a time sink it is and how easy it is to get in the door, if you will. To play it. Yeah,
and
sure.
And because it touches more people, I think that it has an advantage here.
For sure.
For this type of award. But man, yeah, Lorelei is fantastic. If you like puzzle games, it's one of the best, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, jump into Neva, because I have started this one, but I have the least experience with it.
Yeah, I've beaten it, but that was not until this week.
Okay.
Full disclosure, I hadn't touched UFO 50 or Neva until after nominations went out, because those were just I missed those for various reasons. So Neva was the last game that I played, and I beat it this week at around, I'd say, 3.5 hours. And this is an interesting one, because I think Neva's good, but I also think it's somehow weirdly the weakest in this category. Both complimentary and derogatory. I think Neva feels like a game ripped out of the indie scene from like the early teens, where you maybe thematically simplistic, and that's okay, right? But the light going up against the dark and an emotional animal that's following you. Like, I kind of already see where the beats are going just by starting the game up. And indeed, those beats ended up being true in various regards. So it maybe feels a bit antiquated in that regard. But again, it's still a really good game. Surprisingly, very platformer heavy. And I think that is where I found a lot of the game to shine. I understand it was not everyone's cup of tea, because some of those platforming sequences are difficult, and there's no difficulty slider for that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That does often tend to be a roadblock for people. Although Celeste won this category.
Sure.
It's won a lot of awards. And is quite difficult. So that's definitely not a deal breaker.
But that, if my understanding is correct, Celeste had like various accessibility settings you could do, so you can just enjoy the story that way. I don't think Neva has those.
Okay.
For combat, sure, there's a no fail option, but for platforming sequences, it's pretty tight. And if you don't make it, you got to keep retrying.
Interesting. Kind of reminded me of a game that didn't get quite enough recognition this year, Prince of Persia: Lost Crown.
Sure.
Another excellent platformer. Okay, and then UFO 50. I would be thrilled for UFO 50 to win this category, just because a game like this deserves a lot of recognition. Like,
for sure.
What a wild project. I met these guys Summer Games Fest or one of those events, and they explained the game to me, and I was in disbelief, like that they made 50 games. And I just said, why did you do that? Because what an incredible thing to do. Just like spend 10 years making a game that's 50 games. Have you put much time into this?
I've maybe put around 5.5 hours into UFO 50. And the word ambitious is like still doesn't encapsulate how like rich the library of games is for UFO 50. I remember the first time I played, I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's the RPG in the game where you play as a golf ball and you have 20 hits, and then you can obviously get more by doing certain things once you're outside in the RPG world. But like, that was one game out of a list of 50, and there's so many in there that have just as much story depth to them, or even just gameplay depth, that like it really is kind of endlessly replayable, and made by 6 people over the course of X amount of years, and it truly is like one of the most ambitious indie games I think I've ever played, let alone this year.
It's wild. And when we say 50 games, it's not like they did like Galaga 50 times, like there's one of the games is a turn-based RPG that's a full like 60-hour classic Super Nintendo RPG. Like, yeah, so cool. I have not put as much time as I would like into this, and I feel like I never could, no matter how much time I put into it. I'd want to beat all of these games, and it would probably take as long as it took to make them. Did you see that puzzle game about letting people into the party?
I don't think I did.
You're like the door guy at a party, and it's got this crazy point system based on who you let in, and then it tabulates them at the end of every night. It's really cool. It's what a lot of the games, like the interesting thing about them is figuring out how they work.
Yes.
Because there's
Mooncat is another one, right? Yeah.
And that was on purpose, right? Because they wanted to mimic the experience of like going to your friend's house and looking through the games on their shelf and just putting one in the Super Nintendo and trying it out.
Yep.
And so many of these games are they're obscure, and the fun of it is figuring out the rules of the game. And some of the puzzle ones are really cool for that reason.
Which of these are you expecting to take the win?
Wow. Oof.
Tough question, right?
I feel like Balatro will not win Game of the Year, and so it must win either this or the debut indie category. And I'm not sure if it'll be. Yeah, I'm not sure which one it'll be. Because there's another indie category, which is debut indie, and there's a lot of overlap here.
Right.
But yeah, I think Balatro will definitely not win Game of the Year, and therefore will roll down into this. Will win this.
If I may ask, if not Balatro, what do you think will win Game of the Year? You think it's going to Metaphor or Astro? Really?
I think Astro will. For broad appeal, for touching the most people, I think.
I have a feeling Balatro will win both Game of the Year and Indie Game of the Year. I think debut is going to go to Animal Well. Billy Basso.
Okay. Yeah. Debut indie also very strong. Animal Well, Manor Lords, Plucky Squire, Pacific Drive, and Balatro.
Which, if I may add, Manor Lords, early access title.
Yeah. Anything else to touch on?
Please, if you haven't already, play Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. You will not be disappointed.
Yeah, get a pen and paper. Turn the lights off. It's cool because it's immersive, but it's also so cerebral. Oh man, it's just such a cool game. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, do you have a video about Lorelei?
Not on the Gamers channel. No.
Okay, gotcha.
But we will teaser. We will in the next couple of days here as we prep towards Game Awards.
Beautiful. Okay, cool. We will have that linked. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck around, please let us know which indie game you think deserves to win this category. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and visit us at thegamer.com. That's The Gamer. No spaces.